Welcome to part 2 of my Macedon Legendary Rome 2 Total War campaign. Moving real quick here, not much of an introduction. We're going to start of a new turn, move that naval fleet to keep exploring up the coast. And the AI has a pretty significant army here where I'd like to expand, so I'm going to try to sabotage it with my spy, and he was successful. We've got a new technology, and so we can pick another one to start researching. And as I said earlier, I favor tier 2 and 3 military troops, infantry. So I'm looking for a building or a technology that's going to unlock a building that will allow me to obtain that. And it looks like the next upgrade to that Hoplite barracks is the way to go. I'm going to try to goad the AI into attacking this army by putting him into a raiding stance. That settlement up there, the military building, is finished. And in my other settlement I have a building slot here, which I'm going to put a financial building in, a money maker. And I'm going to continue with my recruitment with this army. Keep expanding my forces. You can see we've got 1,700, I think, roughly per turn. It's hard to see on my small preview window here. And that was a pretty short turn, not much to do. This guy's coming back. He wants a non-aggression pact with me, and he's offering money again, but as I did the first time around, I'm going to decline it. I don't want to get involved in any relationships this early in my campaign. And now here the AI does something kind of unexpected. He takes his army and he heads in the opposite direction of me. I'm not quite sure what prompted the AI to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and poison provisions again. And again, I fail. Not having much success with this, but once this agent is ranked up a little bit, he'll become very good at this and be very useful. So now I finally unlocked the first of the abilities that increases his poison provisions effect. Let's go ahead and move my boat again. As I said before, I just want to uncover some factions so that later, once I've got some territory under my belt and feel strong and powerful, I can start making trade agreements with other factions that look strong and powerful, that are friendly towards me. And we're gonna recruit just one unit here because our funds are running kind of low. And on to the next turn. And now that was entirely unexpected. He's taken his entire army and moved it into the water and parked it down there. Kind of a interesting maneuver on the AI part. So now I'm a little bit concerned that he might take that navy and take one of my settlement there that's on the coast. But in the meantime, I might as well go and take his. And the auto resolve will do the job and I'll win, but in these early battles you want to win with as few losses as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and play this one out manually. And my deployment strategy here is going to be to split my forces up into a few units or a few blocks and just move them in from all directions at once. Of course, I'm going to wait for regular daylight weather. Not much point in a fog battle. So there I've just plopped down my 3 melee groups of my strongest infantry units that I have. And then I made a mistake. Put them back over there where I wanted them. Now the remaining melee troops, since they're not as good, will all just kind of sit together. Whenever I organize my forces, I try to keep troops of similar qualities together. That makes it easier to manage the group as a whole. For example, in this case, my unit groups 1, 2, and 3, those are my best melee troops. I don't have to worry about them as much. Melee group 4, well, the troops there aren't as good, so I have to watch them a little bit more closely. If I were to take those lesser military groups and spread them out in every other group, then all I do is create 3 groups that have a weak link in them, and then they all have to be watched more carefully. So everything moves kind of slow, so I oftentimes just put the battle at the highest speed to get things moving along. See, the AI is now starting to bunch up in the center of his settlement. Here I'm using the Alt button to position my unit groups based on the center of the group rather than the right mouse button by itself, which positions them from the left corner of the group. If you didn't know about that, the Alt button is very useful. You got one unit here taking some fire. I'm just looking to see if there's a defensive ability I can put him into, or a defensive stance. And there was nothing that I was very pleased with. And here they've kind of run these guys out. Now this is 2 units of hoplites against 1 ranged unit, so that ranged unit's not going to last very long. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can move that cavalry unit and come around behind the AI. Just keeping an eye on everything all together. Kind of interesting, people say the AI is not very intelligent, but here we can see that it's focusing the majority of its forces on my weakest troops. And they've got a decent unit over there, so I'm just going to run my cavalry away and avoid them. And now we begin the focus fire. And now I've got units behind them, so they're pretty much screwed. This is just a basic hammer and anvil. Nothing works better in this game than a very simple hammer and anvil tactic. This game is all about morale. If you destroy any part of your opponent's line in terms of morale, the whole line just begins to crumble. So the best way to destroy morale is to make an enemy unit take on a large amount of losses very quickly, to completely destroy an enemy unit, to flank or attack an enemy unit in the rear. Even positioning your troops behind the enemy without even attacking will give them morale penalties. And anytime a unit suffers from morale penalties, nearby units kind of pick those penalties up too, I think. And so really winning the battles in this game is about destroying morale. Once you start the rout, then the kills rack up very quickly. So he has his reinforcing general left on the field. Get the focus fire going. He's still chasing my cavalry, so I'm going to use the cavalry to kind of run them off, and then they broke. And let's run them down and put the battle speed up a little bit and just kill them. And if you look at my troop counts and my units at the bottom of the screen there, you'll see that I suffered very few casualties, far fewer casualties than if I had used the auto resolve option. Auto resolve is nice later in the campaign when you have very good armies and your losses are going to be insignificant, or if you have a very high replenishment bonus and whatever you lose is going to be back on the next turn, then auto resolve becomes a little bit more viable. In the early campaign, where losses count more, you want to rely on your ability as a human. So we've pretty much destroyed everything they had there, and I have myself a new settlement. Now it's going to be some time before I really start building up this province as a whole. In the previous video, I started building a military building in this province in the other settlement, and I destroyed the military building in my other settlement that's more to the south and west. And the reason for that is I started this campaign with 2 settlements. One of them is in a province that only has 3 settlements total, and I share it with Athens, so it's not going to be a very good military settlement. I can't read it on the preview here, but whichever one this is, it starts with the P in the more northern part of my campaign map, is going to be my ideal military province. I've increased my settlement count in that province this turn from 1 to 2, so if I capture the other 2 settlements, then I've got a good place to start building all my military buildings. And just as I feared, he's taken this navy and he's moved it down towards this settlement here, which is why I moved my other army back into that settlement. Those events that pop up are not very well documented, and it's very confusing and unclear as to what options you should pick when they pop up. So I just kind of read one or read them all and just pick what seems like it might be best, but I don't really know. So I have Athens here as a client state, and as I said, I try to avoid politics, but they are my client state, so I'm kind of stuck with them. They started off unhappy with me, but now they're looking happier, and as long as I'm stuck with them, I might as well try to get a trade agreement with them. So I was just poking around there to try to get a trade agreement and seeing if a certain amount of money would entice them, and nothing really did. So I'll continue to try that with them every few turns until they'll enter into a trade agreement with me on terms that I like, which is ideally no money required. So here I have my scout, and these are the other 2 settlements I need to capture if I want to complete that province. So let's take this army and move him up there, just in case this guy appears to be very weak. Then I could try to take it on the very next turn. And we got my navy continuing to scout the coastline here and encounter new factions. There's Royal Scythia, or Scythia, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Don't really care either. And let's get this up to what I think will be a full stack. And I've decided that I don't like them.
In wasting the day on you. What you say?
I'm not sure if the mic is picking it up, but one of the reasons I don't do live commentary is because I have a wife and 2 kids, and right now you might be getting a little bit of background children's songs.
Mischief and mayhem. Succeeding is not
Ready for battle.
So we're pretty much at the end of the turn here. Ran out of useful things to do. And my neighbor to the north is going to try to obtain a trade agreement from me, but I don't want that. Because as I said before, I'm going to expand into that territory. And then just as I fear,
We do not
after I
beg for
close this
gold.
window, that
Oh,
AI
no.
Navy is going to attack my settlement, we will do that battle in the next video.